It's not so much about what are the rules and when do you get there and what are you supposed to do. It's when am I going to feel like I have my life together? When am I going to feel like I've figured it all out?
Hey there, welcome to Unboxing It, a podcast by Lara Wellman and me, Rowan Knox. Each week we tackle societal ideas and expectations that can stop us from leading full and authentic lives. We're so glad you're joining us. Let's get started. Hey there, welcome to Unboxing It. I'm Rowan.
And I'm Lara.
And we have an interesting topic today. I don't even know where this is going to go, do you?
A little bit, but not entirely.
It is going to be a tiptoe through the minefield of what does it really mean to be an adult in this day and age?
And when will I feel like one?
And when will I feel like one? Which I can relate to heavily as I run my fingers through my silver hair and stretch out my sore lower back. Yesterday, I posted on Threads that I felt like such an adult because I made an appointment with my dentist after putting it off for like 2 years. I made an appointment with a specialist after putting that off for a while. I deep cleaned the kitchen. I did all these different things. I met with the bank. I filled out all these questionnaires for said specialists and dentists. And I was like, look at me. I'm such a grown up. All I need to do is remember to bring reusable bags to the store. And like, that's it. I should get a trophy or a cookie. I prefer a cookie, honestly.
Yeah, there's so much to adulting. And I think the reason it's such an interesting conversation is because I know I do a lot of adult things, right? Like, I know I have a house, I have a mortgage, I have children. Like, I understand these are adult things. Whenever I'm like, I don't feel like an adult, what I think it is when I was little and I looked at the adults around me, they definitely knew everything. They definitely knew how to handle every situation. They definitely felt confident in all their life choices. And so it's hard to like actually separate that feeling like an adult would feel like that from what I feel like. But like they didn't know that stuff either.
Yeah, I had the same impression of adults when I was younger. First of all, I really thought that every adult was so old. My parents had me very young. So my mom was 19 when I was born. And all of her friends, I remember when I was 3, 4, 5, I'm looking at her friends, my dad's friends. I'm like, wow, that guy has a beard, right? Like they were all in their 20s. All of them were in their 20s, but they seemed so old. And, we've talked about this in a previous episode. We talked about how people aged differently back when we were young. We're both Gen X. We talked about the Golden Girls and how the Golden Girls look so much older than they would look today, probably. We talked about Archie Bunker and All in the Family and how everybody looked older there. So I get that. But I think also the other thing that has really changed in our society, the two of us did that thing of I grew up and I got married and I had children and I purchased a home and I got my driver's license and all these things as sort of stereotypical hallmarks of adulthood. But there are a lot of people who are not doing those things these days, whether by choice or out of necessity. They can't. Home ownership seems very far removed from a lot of the younger generation right now, and it's really unfortunate. A lot of people aren't moving out of their parents' homes until later, or they're moving back in with their parents because they can't afford the rent. People are not getting the same types of jobs anymore where you go in, you get a salaried job and you get private health insurance and you get a pension. Like those things are not happening at the same rate. A lot of people are not having children for a variety of reasons, and the list goes on and on. So on top of, you look at you, Lara, and you're saying, I did a lot of those stereotypical things that would make someone think, oh, that's it. I'm an adult now.
hmm
And you still don't feel nearly as put together as you think you should, is what I'm getting from this. I can only imagine that that might feel just as much so, and maybe even more to people who don't have that little checklist of those stereotypical things that adults are supposed to, and I'm using air quotes here, have.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts to that. And one of them, I really think the big thing for me is just like, not even that I don't know what to do, but like, who let me be in charge of that, right? Like, why just based on a certain level of age are we allowed to make these decisions? And then other people get to make decisions, and I wish sometimes they wouldn't get to make those decisions, right? Especially just based on age. And it's because there is some weight that comes with being an adult, right? Like there is a lot that falls on your shoulders, whether it's trying to figure out how to buy a house or pay the rent, or that you have to figure out what to do if you can't, because it's not an automatic situation that you're going to be taken care of once you're over the age of 18. So all of that put together is just, I think, being an adult. And when we talked about this topic, it was kind of tongue in cheek in this whole like, what does adulting mean, right? But it really does come down to, I think, how hard it can feel to feel like a responsible person who's doing the right things and doing them the right way. And I think the difference between our parents' generation and us is, other than the fact that things have progressively gotten more difficult when it comes to wealth and jobs and homes, is that we, and more with each generation, are less inclined to just put on the uniform of getting older, right? So I didn't cut my hair into a short haircut at 40 because I'm old, and I didn't start wearing polyester blouses. Do you know what I mean? Like the fancy clothes that my parents wore to work every day, right? I, as much as possible, was like, how do I wear jeans and t-shirts for the rest of my life? So we're not putting on the automatic uniform of, I am older, I look older, I look like an adult, this is what I have to do because this is what we have to do at this age, I think.
I think people are also making a lot more room for play than they used to, well into adulthood.
Hmm.
Like in Toronto, there's a number of gaming cafes, and they can either be board game cafes or arcades that are also a cafe slash bar. And they're filled with people who are my age and older a lot of times. Like yes, you're getting the younger people as well. But what I'm saying is it's filled with adults, and adults who maybe in older generations might not have continued to do the same activities that they did when they were younger. You have adults who are 40 years old who are still going to a lot of cons and doing cosplay and just really living up their lives. I love the amount of senior level, senior aged women. Gosh, I feel like no matter how I say that, it's going to sound offensive somehow. Older ladies, perhaps, who have wild hair, right? Because honestly, like I say this as somebody again with no pigmentation in my hair anymore. Wow, can it catch a color? And you've got purples and pinks and blues and all these different colors. And you have this woman who's maybe 80 years old who just steps out of a salon and is like, I went purple today. I was like, yeah, go you, right? So it is really nice to see people not kind of going, well, I'm over a certain age. Let's pack it in and go knitting. And again, there's nothing wrong with knitting. I also know really young people who knit. My stepdaughter knits. She's an avid knitter and crocheter, and she's quite young. But I'm saying, like, that's a stereotypical older person thing. And it's one of those things that people didn't do when they were younger and then did do as they got older. Now you're seeing it across all ages, just like when you go into some kind of con and you see people who are 10 years old and you see people who are 70 years old. It's amazing. So, in that way, I think we're getting to experience more joy and perhaps not feeling as forced into a role, like you said, wearing the outfit, but maybe in other ways that we felt like we needed to before.
Yeah, I think that it's fantastic that we're no longer sticking to those rules of what hobbies can you have at what age. Certainly, I've seen, yeah, as somebody who's really into fiber arts, I've seen all kinds of videos that are like embracing my granny phase in my 20s or whatnot. But I think that we don't have to be any one thing at any one age. And that's what's opening up. You don't have to be only into, I don't know, partying or music, or I don't even know how to be a 20-year-old either. Or wait until you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s to start knitting, embroidering, and all of that. And so, yeah, I think we're having a lot more fun. I was trying to think as you were talking, what are the hobbies that were still acceptable as you got older? And the only ones I could think of that would maybe qualify as fun that have always been okay as you've gotten older are golf and bowling.
Yeah, maybe a dart league.
Oh, darts. Yeah.
Yeah, darts were okay too. I think my dad did a dart league for a while. But I mean, I like darts. That's cool. It was like you were sort of pigeonholed into specific things. And if you did play, say, board games, they were very specific board games as far as I remember. And please correct me if there are some people who are older than us who are listening to this podcast and like, you have got it all wrong. Send us a note. Seriously. In my personal experience, my parents in their 20s got together with people and they played Trivial Pursuit and occasionally Risk. That was it. And oh, cards. They played cards. That was another big thing. But the fact that there are now establishments that make money from people going in to play board games shows that you're appealing to a wide range of ages now. So it isn't just specific ages anymore. Also, I'm seeing that Gen Z, up until recently at least, was drinking a lot less than we ever did and going to bed earlier. That was the other thing that I learned, that Gen Z likes to get a good night's sleep. I'm like,
Good for
yes,
them.
wow, it was not cool to get a good night's sleep when we were young. But now, unless they have to stay up and work on an assignment or do something at their job that requires a lot of work, like they're not staying up super late. They're also setting a lot of boundaries around work that we didn't do and saying like, I will not come in on the weekend. I need my weekends off. I will not answer email after a certain hour. So they're like, in a way, they're learning to adult sooner, and hats off to them. But I hope you're also having fun, because my goodness, then your energy is going to go. Your energy's, can I just a word of caution? Your energy is going to get sapped as you get older. And it won't be a choice anymore. It's just going to be like, oh, yeah, I have to go to bed at a certain time and I have to get a certain amount of sleep or I'm not going to be able to function anymore. So getting older finds you whether you like it or not.
Hmm. I think what's interesting about this conversation is the idea of starting with what does it mean to be an adult? As in, to me, it was like what confidence levels, what abilities, what decision making, all of that. But also, there are a lot of things that we didn't really think we were supposed to do anymore, right? So that's what you're saying is we're kind of mixing it all up because I'm an almost 50-year-old who had a really big onesie phase. Like I was the one who would like bring onesies to every event and I would be like, put on this shark onesie. Bring back a little bit of fun and whimsy into your life because it's not the kind of thing people do anymore after a certain point. Yeah, you're going to go to a Halloween party, you're going to get dressed up once a year. That's the thing. It's okay. It's for a dress up party, but then that's it. You don't walk around wearing a tiara because it makes you happy. But like, why not?
Right, exactly. We've made a lot of rules around it. Why not indeed? I'm going to admit something, and this is something that I've been examining myself. But when I see somebody my age, dressed in an outfit that somebody would wear in high school, for
Mm-hmm,
example,
mm-hmm.
I get a little weirded out. And I don't like that about me. I think it has been so ingrained in me that as we get older, not that we shouldn't have a sense of fashion. I definitely love style. And not that we shouldn't wear, say, things that would be deemed more revealing or anything like that. Like, I think that everyone should dress how they're comfortable. And my comfort level based on what somebody else is wearing is honestly irrelevant. The only person it's relevant to is me because I need to look at it. But yeah, it is a thing. And I remember this. I remember when my child came out as trans, I took them out. They were assigned male at birth. and they wanted to shop in the girls' department. And this is years and years ago now. It's like 11 years ago or something. So I took them to the now defunct Canadian Target, RIP Target. I miss
It was
Target.
a very short-lived Canadian
Very
Target.
short lived. Yeah. Very short lived. Go look that up if you haven't seen it. Wow. They use that now in classes on how to not do business. But anyway, I digress. But I took them to Target to look for clothes. And they were so excited. They were having the greatest time of their life, just going through everything. I wrote about this in my first book. I felt sick to my stomach. And I had to sit with it and go, what is that? Why am I having such a hard time? And it was because I had been taught through media and conversations I had overheard and jokes I had heard that if somebody who's assigned male at birth wants to dress in women's clothing, that's a fetish, that's sexual. And the idea of my child doing it, therefore, felt very deeply wrong. Now, I'm bringing this up, first of all, I don't feel that way anymore because I was able to identify it and work through it. But I will say that I think it's kind of the same energy as I was saying. If I see, I don't know, somebody wearing something very sequency that came out of, I'm going to be very Canadian here, an Ardennes or something, right? Where you have like this little sequence mini skirt or something that I would assume maybe a 15 or 16-year-old would wear. And I see it on somebody who's 50. And I'll be like, oh, what's going on there? And then I have to check myself, right? And go, no, no, what's going on with you? And I really, really do think that when we see something that is out of what we consider normal, like the norm, it can trigger these reactions inside of us, no matter how open minded we try to be. And I see that with a lot of things. People with kids who get weirded out by the idea of somebody not wanting children. It's becoming less of a thing now, but a few years ago, that was still a big thing. You're like, what? You don't want children? What do you mean? Right?
Mhm.
Or people not wanting to go get a, I'm going to use air quotes again, real job because they really like their job at the skate shop. They just enjoy it, or they really like being a barista, or they really like whatever it is. And it's like, well, you're too old for that job. But says who? Who says you're too old for that job? Right? Does an adult mean you have to give up everything you enjoy? Is that being an adult? Because if that is the case, if you can't wear what you want to wear and you can't work in the fields you want to work in and you can't continue to be creative and you can't continue to have a good time, what's the point?
Then I don't want to be an adult.
Yeah, I'm checking out of that. Never mind.
And I think a lot of what we were taught, and I imagine, although please come and correct me if I'm wrong again to our listeners, that a lot of our listeners are probably in sort of similar age ranges to us. Like they're not 20, but hey, please come and talk to us if you are. They grew up in a time where there were also a lot of rules, right? So many rules that you didn't even notice that you were being taught around what is appropriate for a person of a certain age to do, what kind of behavior is appropriate. Because as soon as you start to do certain things, there was a lot of judgment like, oh, this person, they think they're still 20, or they like what they wore when they were 20. They liked what they did when they were 20. And so this is about noticing when we have that judgment come up when we see people, because we will. There are all kinds of thoughts that I still have in all kinds of different directions, no matter what I'm seeing. And I'll feel like an old thought come up and I'll be like, whoa, not cool, Lara. I'm glad nobody else heard that. And then I check myself, and then like I think that that's the first thing we need to do is we need to notice when we see something and judgment comes up, and then ask ourselves like, why do we care? Why does it matter? Why did we think it mattered? What did people think was the problem with it? And that deconstructs the whole idea, unless it lets us realize like it's just not a big deal.
We can look at adulthood in a number of different ways. I mean, obviously, in Canada and many parts of the world, 18 years old is what is considered legally an adult. We're not questioning what is legally an adult. We're maybe more questioning what adulting actually is. Because when we were younger, we had these ideas of what it was, and then we became adults ourselves and realized, huh, I'm not nearly as put together as I thought I was. I'm perhaps not as confident in some cases as I thought I might be. And my life looks very different than I expected it might look as an adult. I'm just giving examples. I think that being an adult means that we have to find that balance between having that fun, that joie de vivre, and also being responsible. Because I do think responsibility is something that people can forget sometimes.
Mhm.
I know of people who have grown up and gotten married and had families. And then one day, one of them decides, you know what? I don't want this anymore. And they just check out. And it's like, oh, I want to have more fun in my life. This isn't fun. I need to be doing something different. And you know what? That's fine. If your relationship doesn't work out, if you're like, no, I need something different out of life. But being an adult also means taking responsibility for your actions. I do think that is a big part of adulthood. If you did decide to have children, be responsible for them. That doesn't mean go to bed at 9 o'clock, never leave the house, don't have any hobbies, stay in a miserable relationship, like none of those things. But it might mean make sure they are still a big part of your life, even if that is challenging, because you did decide to do that. There's a reality check that has to come with adulthood, and it may not be around children, it could be around other things. But having to strike that balance between being true to yourself and making sure that you live a life that suits you while also remembering that you're not the only person who matters.
Yep.
That to me might be adulthood.
Yeah. And as you're talking, really, if you're over 18, you're an adult, but you may not be a responsible adult. And that's probably what most of us should be striving for is responsible adult, not just adult.
Right.
Because I think there's certainly a bunch of irresponsible adults out there for sure. My goal would not to be one of them. And so it is just a matter of distinguishing like what is it that you want to do? And being an adult, does it mean you're responsible for things? You're responsible for yourself? But I'm sure there's some adults who are not responsible for themselves. Other people are responsible for them. So it's not just the word adult. And I think when this topic came up, it was more around that feeling that I wish I had, because it's not so much about what are the rules and when do you get there and what are you supposed to do. It's when am I going to feel like I have my life together? When am I going to feel like I figured it all out? And I think it's simply unlikely that most adults feel like they've figured that out because I'm like, I still feel like, well, I don't know how old I think I still feel like anymore, but I used to be like, like I still feel like I'm young. I don't feel any different. But then when I think about the things that I did and the decisions that I made and what I would do now, it's like, oh, I do see a distinct difference between how I make decisions and what I might think of as a responsible decision versus an irresponsible decision. And it is easier for me at this age to make what would be considered a responsible decision.
Yeah, that's wisdom, right? We live and learn. I think if you don't look, I'm going to speak for myself because I don't want to offend anyone. I think I've probably already offended everybody with my older ladies comment. But I think that for me, if I don't look back at my life from 3, 4 years ago and think about something that I did, and kind of go, ooh, wouldn't do that the same now, wouldn't react the same, or wouldn't have made the same decision, or wouldn't have thought that, or whatever it might be, then have I really grown? So to me, life, not just adulthood, is all about learning and growing from my mistakes, choosing to put love first and kindness first whenever I can, and facing challenges with the mindset that I will learn. There's a gift, there's a little nugget in there that I can excavate. So I do think that comes with age. I also think that when you were saying, when am I going to feel like I have my life together?
Hmm.
The older I get, the less I feel like I'm ever going to have my life together. I think I had this idea that I would later, and I have lived too much now to go, oh, yeah, I still am going to have no idea what I'm doing. In fact, I'm more certain now that I have no clue what I'm doing than I was when I was 20 years old. And at 20 years old, I was in a very different situation, but I was filled with confidence in some ways and lacked a lot of confidence in other ways. But now I feel like I'm more confident in myself in the way that I know that, yeah, I don't have it all together. I'm never going to have it all together. And I'm going to be just fine no matter what. That's totally okay.
Yeah, I think I want to focus on the wisdom that I've collected over the years. I like when you said that word. I was like, yes. And I do. I want to be more wise than just quote unquote adult. I would love to be wise. And we continue to grow because I think we're mostly all trying to grow. So we're never going to get to the end destination, right? Like, I feel like in life we think, oh, when I get to this place, it's going to be amazing. But we don't get to the end. Once we get to that place, if we achieve it, then we have new goals. We have new things that we want to achieve. We're not done. We're not like, boop, that's it. Now I'm just gonna repeat my life the same way every day for the rest of my life. We're gonna keep growing. We're gonna keep changing. We're gonna keep figuring things out. And I think that we can learn so much from how the younger generations are adulting. And we can stop putting so much pressure on ourselves to try to be this perfectly responsible, always having it together person that we thought we would be once we reached a certain age.
And us doing that will also help the younger generation
Hmm.
because they will look at us and go, oh, okay, it's really nice to see that nobody knows what they're doing, actually, that there's comfort in that. It takes the pressure off of them as they get older to feel like, well, it really looked like everybody my parents' age knew what they were doing. But if their parents are like, hey, we're all just doing the best we can, all of us are just doing the best we can. And we all make mistakes, and adults are human beings too, and we are fallible. The more we do that, the easier the world gets for everybody. It's the same reason I believe in being very visible as a trans person, because the more that I show people that this diversity is just out there, it just exists, that I didn't choose this, is something that I just was. And that's okay. And here's my life. And that then allows other people, contrary to popular belief, it doesn't turn anybody trans. but I mean, Laura, we've talked so much, you'd be trans by now, honestly.
Yeah, look at that.
I know, imagine. And you're decidedly not. So I apparently have to try harder. But all it does is it creates this window into a reality that exists rather than me trying to make it something it's not. You and I both came up as parents in like the heyday of the mummy blog.
Yep.
And we've talked about this before, but it should be said again. Back in that era of the early 2000s, it was very much anybody who was putting their life out there as a parent was putting it out there. Well, I don't want to say everybody, there were a couple of exceptions, but overall, the people who were putting their lives out there on display and going, look, this is me, this is my family, this is a day in the life of our family and parenting, it was very curated. It was very much like, look how put together I am. Look how perfect my children are. Look how much I do for them and with them, and all the love that they receive and all the love that I get. And basically, all of the best parts of parenting that are this little fraction of what actually goes on as a parent. And we all know it, those of us who are parents. But I think it set people up to become parents themselves and possibly get shocked at how difficult it actually is, and that it is not that all the time. We have to create a more realistic version of life. And as adults, especially adults who've been adults for a while, being able to say, I don't have my shit together and I'm never going to have it together and I have never had it together no matter how hard I tried. That's not depressing. That's releasing someone from societal expectations, which I think is a huge service.
Yeah, well, I think that, like I was saying, the uniform of being an adult included how you wore your hair and what you actually wore, but I think it also required you to always put your best foot forward and always make sure everybody saw the best side possible. So we didn't, I don't think our parents did. I don't know that I did in the beginning, really come out and say the hard things. Whereas I really try now with my kids to say, you know what, right now, I am dysregulated. Like, if you want to have a good conversation, you should wait just a little bit because now's not the time where it's going to go how you want. But to be honest about that stuff, to say, sometimes this is difficult. Sometimes I don't like this thing in my life. And I don't think talking about that was common. And so I do think it's really good. It's just like changing how we talk about life.
My partner and I are opening a business, and it is the most responsible thing I think I've ever done in my life, possibly beyond parenting, in terms of how bureaucratic it is, how many meetings there are, how much I have to adult, how much I have to work with numbers, and I hate working with numbers. And this is funny because I just realized this as we were talking. I was out with my son and his girlfriend in the small town where he's going to school right now. And I went to a secondhand shop, like a thrift shop, and I found this weird, almost paper mache type creature for $4. Kind of looks like a cat, kind of looks like a pig, kind of looks like a cow. And it is small and creepy and funny. So I bought it and I gave it to my partner, Danny. And she was like, ugh, right? So I started putting it in places where it would be very obvious to her. Like she would open her drawer and it would be there, or she would wake up and turn over and it would be there on the pillow next to her. And then she started taking it, and we never talked about this. She would take it and then she would put it somewhere where I would find it. And then I would just take it and put it somewhere where she would find it. We just go back and forth like this. And we have not said a word to each other about doing this. I noticed there was something in my light on my desk just now, and I'm about to reach my hand in, and I guarantee you, yep, in my light is this weird little creature. And
We will put a photo of that into the show notes.
oh, it deserves an entire photo spread as far as I'm concerned. This thing should be in vogue. It is delightful and weird. If that doesn't sum up adulting, we have 5 kids between us. We are starting a business. We've been under all this stress and we're doing these really big things. And we still make that time to do something ridiculous for each other back and forth and to laugh. Like, this is the funniest thing that it was sitting in my light. I haven't found it for days, and there it was, just as we're talking. I think that that is exactly the level of adulting that I want to do. Because if I just did the boring things and tried to convince myself that I was totally capable of everything and never out of my depth and the most confident man alive, I would be doing myself a disservice. But if I can find a weird cow, cat, pig thing and hide it in my partner's t-shirt drawer and she can hide it back, that's perfect to me. That's it. I've won adulting.
Woo! We've solved it, right? The question is, what does it mean to be an adult? It means stop thinking you can get everything together and start thinking you can have fun and just be yourself.
And for goodness sakes, like, just take a moment to recognize that life is actually very short. And also, the older you get, the more you realize that life can be a lot shorter than you expected. We lose people, things change, circumstances change. So try to find those moments to experience that pure, unfiltered, unbridled joy. And if you can do that, it's like you're a kid again. And that's the most wonderful feeling.
This has been a good conversation.
It has. I don't know if I feel more grown up since having this conversation. How do you feel?
I mean, I think that really what we figured out is I'm not going to, so we're all good.
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine. You just stay messy. Just stay messy. It's okay. We're all messy. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for listening to Unboxing It. We're so glad you did. If you like what you heard and you want to help us keep making episodes, please leave us a rating wherever you heard this one. You can also subscribe to the Unboxing It Substack to get access to all of the latest news and some special bonus content. And hey, truly, don't forget to find some moments of joy today. You deserve them. Take care out there, and we'll see you next time.